Captain Eugene loved his little home and all the colourful characters within. There was Mouse, who pined like a louse; Cleo, who dreamed of going to Rio; Patch, always keen for a scratch; Debbie Downs, no smiles to be found; Francois would play Spanish guitar, and Nancy Lou liked to screw, and Rocket had 2 working eye sockets. Captain Eugene had truly found his dream team, and at the end of a long day, he looked out over his lands and thought to himself, all is well. Eugene slept soundly as Mouse spent the night pining. He was in love with Debbie Downs. Debbie Downs was with Francois. Mouse didn't mind as long as she was happy, though she was never truly happy, and sported a developing severe clinical depression. Not being into his advances that night, Debbie and Francois spent the night in different rooms. However, Nancy was screwing Rocket and Patch, going back and forth like a tennis match, and Cleo was dreaming of Rio. The next day a stranger came to the lands, a lady with arms called Unit. "She certainly looks like a unit," said Francois to Cleo. "I bet she could take me to Rio," says Cleo. Both men's crushes were immediately noticed by Nancy and Debbie Downs, but feigning ignorance, both men took up immediately to pursue the woman, flirting and asking her out repeatedly over the course of the day and night, until she chanced on an escape. After they briefly lost her, Nancy went over to Rocket's place to discover that Rocket had lost his grip on reality. After all, how special are 2 eye sockets compared to 2 arms? Everyone has eye sockets. She's the only one with arms, says Rocket. Nancy pleaded with him to screw and forget all about it, but ignoring her advances, which were otherworldly, Rocket set off on a quest to find himself 2 arms and was never seen in town again. The day's misadventures had caused worry in Eugene, who spent the night with Nancy Lou. After all, what else was there to do? "Are you coming?" says Nancy. "Yes, ma'am," sighed Eugene. The next day, Cleo discovered that Patch was in the garden with Unit, getting scratches in all the places Cleo desired for himself. The joy he saw in Patch's eyes reminded him of his frequent dreams of Rio. As Patch headed home, Cleo murdered him by pushing a boulder over the overhead while Patch walked below. The guilt drove Cleo mad with insanity, and he threw himself over to join his friend in the other side of life. Francois declared his love yet again in the fallout of this, and Unit decided he was fit to marry, but that Debbie would have to be cast out of the house. Mouse watched. Debbie, day by day, scrounged in the streets, refusing charity of any kind. He would plead for her to marry him, and she'd say, "Marriage has faded my life away." But she eventually grew too weak to deny him, and he brought her in to rest and recover by his fire, and in the night, as if by premonition, she slowly faded away. Eugene came to visit Mouse to make sure he was okay.
Save every day till eternity passes away.
On the following afternoon, at a graveyard, Nancy and Eugene look over the graves of their lost comrades. "I hear Francois and Unit will be having children. With arms, I imagine," says Eugene. "Come on, Eugene. There's no one here for us anymore. Let's find a new land." "I always thought you were the best boy anyway, Captain," says Nancy. And so they ventured out into the deserted lands to seek new lands. As they wandered out, Nancy horny and Captain Eugene faintly optimistic about the future, they wonder if they'll stumble on Rocket with his working eye sockets.